back, America. It's Hugh Hewitt on Canada Day. Greetings, Canada. Have a great Canada Day. Joined now by, well, it's not really Canada. Oklahoma is pretty far away. Senator James Lankford. Hello, Senator. How are you?
I'm doing very well. We're a pretty long way from Canada. You are correct.
Well, there got to be some Canadian down there, though. Welcome and good to have you back. I want to start with a hard one. The president tweeted this morning, Senator, that he will veto the Defense Authorization Act if it includes the provision about the commission to rename bases. I disagree with him on this. I think every one of those bases ought to be renamed yesterday. What's your position on the president's tweet and on that provision of the bill?
So I'm going to have to actually follow up on it because there are two different provisions. He tweeted about the Elizabeth Warren provision, which is just an immediate name change, period. Everything changes right now. There's another provision that's in the bill that's a 3-year study to be able to look at all these different bases and to be able to transition to new names. I'm with you at this point. I think bases are like schools. The school has that name because you want it to be a role model for the kids that are at that school. Bases have names because you want people, soldiers, sailors, Marines, folks that are at that base to be able to emulate that person. And if you've got an individual that was not only a person that lost a lot of battles, is not somebody that you would want to have emulating for the folks that are there, or to have someone that was a traitor to the country. So I think there are some important things here. It's not erasing history. We can maintain history, statues, monuments, all kinds of things we've got to be able to maintain. But there is something important about the name of a place where you do training, that you're naming it after someone that you want the people there to emulate.
There's also the Wilson Center in Washington, D.C. Your friend and mine, Chris Coons, he's a much closer friend to you than he is to me, but I count him a friend. He and I have appeared together at the Wilson Center. It's named for a stone cold racist. Woodrow Wilson was a stone cold racist and eugenicist. Do you think we ought to change that as well? And I know this is being debated in the White House. Perhaps to the Moynihan Center. He was the fellow who thought it up anyway.
Yeah, it gets even tougher when you start getting to every single name change on this. So here's the hard part about nuances. You've got presidents, vice presidents, you've got people that are national leaders, all kinds of faults and flaws that you've got to be able to look at and to evaluate. Okay, where do we go? How far does this go? Again, for schools, bases, and such, I think there's a legitimate issue there. But I go back to basic Old Testament. Lots of folks in the Old Testament were some bad actors and were some really terrible stories. And much of the Old Testament that I read is stories that people did stupid stuff, but then we learn from that. I think there's some benefit in keeping some names of history around to say that's in our past, good, bad, or ugly. But we need to keep some of the bad names back there as well in some places to be able to remember here's what we came from and to continue to teach our children, the next generation, that this can be better.
Your colleague Lamar Alexander always cites Alex Haley, find the good and praise it. I think that's what we ought to do with memorials and centers and things like that. Senator, let me move on to the Supreme Court. Yesterday was the biggest religious liberty decision in the 30 years that I have been following it and the 25 years I've been teaching it. It's huge. The Chief Justice wrote it. Do you think conservatives will give him credit for the free exercise absolutist that he is? They love to hate. Someone told me yesterday conservatives love to rush to declare defeat. And we won. I mean, it's a big, big win. What do you think of it?
Yeah, it is an enormous win. It goes back to the Trinity Lutheran case from several years ago as well. What the court is once again affirming the most basic right of religious liberty, that the United States government or no state government has the right to be able to say to an individual, you can participate in our society as long as you drop your faith. And that's really what the Espinosa decision does. It bases on something you know well called the Blaine Amendments that are all over the country, including in my state in Oklahoma, that were when the state was formed, there was a requirement saying no benefit could go to any sectarian issue. It was really designed to be anti-Catholic at that time, and it's been just put on every single religious group. So the gist of it is, in this case, there's a scholarship fund set up for a schools, and you get a tax credit for it, and it could go to any school except religious schools. And so some parents, students said, we want our kids to be able to go to religious schools. What's the difference? The state of Montana said, no, you can go to any school you want to as long as they're not faith based. Yesterday, the Supreme Court said that's prejudice on its face. You can't say you can do anything as long as you don't have religion on it. If you offer it to one, you have to offer it to all, neutral. And they were very clear on that yesterday. And that's a very good standard to be able to set out there and say the government shouldn't have anything to do to be able to pick how you practice your own personal faith or a lack of faith. It's neutral to all parties, and then individuals get to choose.
I think it's dispositive now, Senator Lankford, that had Secretary Clinton been President Clinton and named the vacancy, much less had she replaced Justice Kennedy, that we would not enjoy the religious liberty to the extent that we do today. That Donald Trump, working with Mitch McConnell and your colleagues in the Senate, have saved the free exercise clause. That's my opinion. I believe it is dispositive now. Do you agree with me on that?
I completely agree with you on that. This is a case where no one is treated different than anyone else. We're not looking for special privileges. Just don't treat us as discriminated against because we are people of faith. For any faith, no matter what your background is on that, this would not have happened if those 5 members were not on the court that voted that way, including the 2, Kavanaugh and Gorsuch.
That's all. I think that the never Trumpers are going to have to reconcile themselves to the fact that the president, working with Leader McConnell and the Republicans in the Senate, have saved religious liberty in its full and complete and intended protection for individuals. Senator Lankford, always good to see you for the first time on Skype, but you got a tie on. You're making me look bad. It's too early for ties.
It's another day here in the Senate. Get up early, get going quickly, and there's a lot to get done.
Thank you, Senator. Be well. Hour number 3, America's Ahead on the Hugh Hewitt Show.
Portions of the Hugh Hewitt Show are brought to you